Sheikh, I think you can start.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khayri khalqillahi ajma'een. Sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa maulana Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome again to another talk on this topic, perfecting salah. And inshallah today our topic will be the times, conditions and the prerequisites of salah. So without further ado, let's go into today's topic inshallah. So the first we'll do the definition of the word salah. Salah, that is a singular, and the plural of salah is as-salawat. So the linguistic meaning of the word salah means supplication, to make dua. Your whole salah is a dua. You're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So out your salah, you'll be asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the reason why we call it as-salah, as it's a dua when you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you make dua, you are speaking to Allah. When you're in your salah, you are speaking to Allah. But its technical meaning, according to the scholars of jurisprudence, is a set of actions and utterance that begins with saying Allahu Akbar. So this is Takbiratul Ihram. When you say Allahu Akbar, we'll speak more about this later on, inshallah. And it ends with saying Assalamu alaikum. So the beginning of the salah is Allahu Akbar, and the end of the salah is Assalamu alaikum, and it is performed according to specific conditions. So there are many conditions in the salah, and we'll be doing that now, inshallah. So this is just a definition of the word salah, what it's all about. So let's move on to the topic of tonight, the time periods of the 5 daily salahs. As you know, the word salah, the plural is salawat, but in English we say salahs, and I kept it as salahs. So there are 5 daily obligatory salahs. So there are 5 periods in the day that you have to perform your salah. We will start off with the first, that is the morning, and is Fajr. So Fajr begins when the second dawn appears. This is a second glow on the horizon after the first glow has disappeared. So you get something as the first dawn and the second dawn. You get something as the first Fajr and the second Fajr, or as some has mentioned, scholars, the false Fajr and the truthful Fajr. What's the difference between the two? In the morning, when it's still morning, like dark outside, there will be 2 glows. The first glow will come, that is known as the first dawn. There will be a glow, and that glow will darken after a while. So it will come, there will be a glow on the horizon or in the middle of the sky, and this glow will brighten, it will go dark again. And then afterwards, another glow will appear, which is the second dawn, the truthful Fajr. When you see the first glow, that is usually an hour before Fajr. When you hear, the first adhan goes off, those who went to Mecca before, you will know that an hour before Fajr, there's an adhan that is known as the Fajr, the false Fajr, because it's not Fajr yet. It's an hour before Fajr. That's the time when the mu'adhin makes the adhan for the individuals to perform the tahajjud salah. So it's a time to wake up. That's the first dawn. The Fajr that we perform is the second dawn. So that light will disappear, and then another light will come. And that light will be on the horizon, and that will be the second glow, the second type of light. And that is the Fajr Salah. So if you see the first glow, you cannot perform Fajr Salah. Only if you see the second glow, that's when you can perform Fajr Salah. That's when Fajr Salah starts. So it is recommended to perform Fajr until a yellow glow appears on the horizon. So what happens? From the time when you see the second glow, you're allowed to perform Fajr. And from that time, it's recommended to perform Fajr. It's a recommended period. From that time until you will see now a bit of yellow in the horizon. So you can see the sun is coming up, but the sun is not out yet, but you see the rays of the sun, and that's making the horizon yellow. Until you see the yellow, that is a recommended time to perform Fajr Salah. But you can still perform Fajr Salah until when? Fajr Salah ends when the edge of the disk of the sun appears on the horizon. So we have a disk. We have a disk. The sun is a round disk. When at the tip of the disk is seen on the horizon, that's when Fajr ends. So from the time we see the yellow until when you see the tip, that is the time whereby you're allowed to make Salah, Fajr Salah. But the best time will be still when you see the second glow until the yellow appears. So when you speak about the times of Salah, there are recommended times whereby the reward is much more compared to other times. So the reward for performing Fajr from the second glow, the second dawn, until the yellow in the sky appears, that is the recommended time, the more reward in that time. If you perform it afterwards, yes, the Salah will be valid, but the reward is less compared to the recommended time. And whenever you perform Salah in the recommended time, the reward is much more. So the time of Fajr is when you see the second glow in the sky, the second dawn, until you see the sunrise, the disk of the sun, the tip of the disk of the sun on the horizon. So when you see that disk, the tip of it, meaning it just sticks out, and you see it on the horizon, that means Fajr Salah has ended. If you make Salah after that, you are performing Salah not in the time of Salah, but outside the time of Fajr. Now let's move on to Dhuhr, because we have our first Salah, which is Fajr. We have our second Salah, which is Dhuhr. Dhuhr begins when the sun moves away from its highest point in the sky, the zenith. So in the highest point of the sky, when the sun is there, that is known as the zenith. And when it moves away from the highest point, that is when Dhuhr begins. And Dhuhr ends when the shadow of an object is equal to its length plus the shadow that was present when the sun reached its highest point. Okay, what does this mean? Let's do an example. So let's say a length of a stick from the surface of the ground until its top is 100 centimeters long, meaning a meter. So we have a meter stick in the ground, meaning from the surface of the ground until the top of the stick is 1 meter, 100 centimeters. The shadow cast on the ground just before the sun moves to its highest point is 22 centimeters. So what we find now is that while the stick is in the ground, the sun is just before the highest point is casting now rays onto the stick, and the stick is casting a shadow onto the ground. So let's say we mark it and we find that that shadow is actually 22 centimeters. And when the sun is in the highest point in the sky, the shadow is 20 centimeters. And when the sun moves away a bit from its highest point, we see the shadow to be again 22 centimeters. So we see that the shadow was getting smaller and then larger. It was getting smaller and then but larger. This means the shadow of the object stick when the sun is in its highest point is 20 centimeters, the shortest it can ever be. Because we saw it went shorter and then went longer, meaning the shortest the sun can, the shortest the sun rays is going against the stick to cast a shadow is 20 centimeters when the sun is in its highest point in the sky. Therefore, Dhuhr begins when the shadow moves from its shortest length of the 20 centimeters and ends when the shadow is 120 centimeters, the length of the stick plus the shadow at when the sun was at its highest point. So remember, a shadow of an object shortens as the sun moves towards its highest point and lengthens when it moves away from its highest point. Okay, I made a diagram just to illustrate this point a bit clear more, you know. So this point here, if you look at the marker, this part from here, you see the sun. We're speaking about Fajr Salah. So we see the sun. The sun has not yet reached the horizon. So the sun is there, but the sun is casting certain rays, and we're seeing its rays. And this part is Fajr. So we're seeing the rays of the sun, but you don't see the disk of the sun as yet. This black line, that's the horizon. So we only see the rays of the sun, but you don't see the sun, the disk. So when you see the rays of the sun, until when you see the tip of the disk, that portion is Fajr. So Fajr starts before we can see even the sun. We only see the rays of the sun. And when we can see the sun, that's when Fajr has ended. And so when the sun goes all the way up into the sky, we see this stick here, a shadow is cast. But as it goes to the middle of the sky, it gets shorter. So the shadows get shorter as it goes up and up and up to the highest point. So when the sun is in the highest point of the sky, now we have a shadow. And that shadow is the shortest that a shadow can be. So it goes from longer, shorter, and to the shortest when the sun is in the highest point in the sky, which is known as zenith. Then as it moves, it gets longer and longer again as it goes to set in Maghrib. So we want to know when is Dhuhr. So we look at the stick. This is the shortest the length it can be. So when it goes and moves away from this, it goes a bit bigger, then that's when Dhuhr starts. And when Dhuhr ends is when the shadow is the same length as a stick. The stick is 100 centimeters. It's the same length as a stick plus the shadow when the sun was in the highest point in the sky. And that shadow was 20 centimeters. So we have 100 centimeters plus 20 centimeters will give you that 120 centimeters. So Dhuhr will be from this portion to this portion. So from when the sun is in the highest, moves from the highest portion from the sky until the shadow that the stick casts on the ground is the same length as the stick plus the shadow that the stick cast when the sun was in the highest point of the sky. That will now make the end of Dhuhr. And then, of course, Asr we will do now, inshallah, is from that portion when the sun moves from here till it sets. So we see here that Asr ends when the entire disk of the sun sets. So very important to note that the entire disk of the sun sets. So this is just an illustration to show, Fajr, and then we have Dhuhr, and then we have Asr, and then Asr goes to Maghrib. Okay. So let's move on to the Asr waqt. So Asr begins when the shadow of an object is more than its length plus the shadow that was present when the sun reached its highest point in the sky. So basically, previous example, this would be when the shadow length increases from 120 centimeters, because you see that the Dhuhr Salah ended at 120 centimeters, and therefore Asr will start when it moves from 120 centimeters, so 121 centimeters. As it goes on, that will now be Asr starts. So it is recommended to perform Asr Salah before the shadow of an object is double its length plus the shadow that was present when the sun reached its highest point. So we have to look at it. Double its length. This stick is 1 meter. We double that, gives you 2 meters plus the initial 20 centimeters when the sun was in the highest point, gives you 2 meters and 20 centimeters. So from the 1 meter and 20 centimeters until 2 meters 20 centimeters, that is the recommended time to perform Asr Salah. That's when you get the most reward. But you can still perform it when? Until the end. So Asr ends when the disk of the sun has completely set. So when you can no longer see the disk, that's when Asr ends, and that's now when Maghrib will begin. So Maghrib begins when the disk of the sun has completely set. And Maghrib ends when the red twilight disappears. So when the sun sets, you will reddish. First orange, and then it's red. And when it gets red, and this red disappears, that's when Maghrib ends. So Maghrib ends when you look in the sky and you see it's red, and the red goes away, and you get a bit of a white. So the red actually changes to a white appearance away. Sometimes you know white, sometimes just black. But when this red goes away, that's when Maghrib ends. And when Maghrib ends, what happens? Again, the same thing happens. Isha will start. So when Maghrib ends, Isha starts. So the next one will be Isha Salah. So Isha Salah begins when the red twilight disappears. So there's no more red twilight. That's when the waqt of Isha starts. It's recommended to perform Isha Salah before a third of the night elapses. So the time period whereby it's recommended to perform Isha Salah is between the time whereby the red twilight disappears until the first third of the night has elapsed. And how do you work that out? So the first third of the night, you work it out by looking at Maghrib. So Maghrib is when the night starts. And let's say Maghrib starts, let's say Maghrib starts 6 o'clock. And let's say Fajr is 6 o'clock. So we work out this 12 hours. So we look at the recommended time will be for the first 4 hours. So it's until 10 o'clock. It's the recommended time to perform the Salah of Isha Salah. Because for a 12, it will give you 12 hours. And then therefore the first third of the night has elapsed. And that is the recommended time for Isha Salah. And Isha Salah ends when the second dawn appears. Because you spoke about the two dawns. So when Fajr appears, when Fajr waqt starts, that is when Isha Salah ends. So you can perform Isha Salah from the time when the red twilight disappears until just before Fajr. You can perform Isha Salah. But like we mentioned, the recommended time is from the time when the red twilight disappears until, mentioned here, the third night has elapsed. So that time period, it's recommended for you to perform Isha Salah. Okay. So the question here is, when is the best time to perform Salah? The best time to perform Salah is immediately after its time has entered. So when the time has entered, that is the best time to perform Salah. So when Fajr has entered, to perform Salah in its beginning, to perform that time, it's the best time to perform that time, the Salah. Dhuhr has entered, to perform Salah in the beginning when Dhuhr has entered, and Asr and so forth. So the best time is to perform when the waqt has entered. But if you're not able to do so, if not able, then busy yourself with preparing for it, leaving what you are busy with, taking ablution, etc., to perform it. So some people, they can actually stop what they are doing before the waqt has entered, and when the waqt has entered, they will not perform their salah. Others will wait until the waqt has entered, and now they will actually stop doing their work and prepare for the salah. So of course, if you stop doing your work and all those things, you will now delay a bit further from the time when you started. And if you can't do that, you're not able to do so, then make an intention to perform your salah on time, in its time. We see there's a period that a person can perform the salah. In that time period, make the intention you're going to perform that salah in that time period, not after its time, but in that time period. A lot of times you are busy with work, a lot of times you're busy with studies and so forth, and we forget about the salah. And then we make actually intention to perform it out of its time because we're too busy now. We don't want to take leave or whatever we are doing. Shouldn't be the case. If you want to, you can delay the salah, but make sure that you perform your salah in its time. And when is the end of the salah? So a salah is considered to have been performed within its time if one rak'ah is completed before its time end. Example, completing the first rak'ah of Maghrib before the disk of the sun sets. So if you perform the first rak'ah of Maghrib before, sorry, not of Maghrib, of Asr. There's a mistake there, of Asr. So if you completed the first rak'ah of Asr Salah before the disk of the sun has set, meaning you performed Asr, the first rak'ah, while the disk was setting, and then just before and just after you finish the first rak'ah, the sun has set. Now the Maghrib waqt has entered, and you perform the 3 other rak'ahs of Asr in the waqt of Maghrib, you still got your Asr Salah. But again, that, if you look at it, that's the least of the reward you can ever get, because you're performing a salah to the very end. But if you want that reward, of course, before that, that's only if something came up and you couldn't do it, and you forgot other salah and you remember to perform your salah. And so if you perform 1 rak'ah just before the adhan goes off, then you got that salah. Meaning you still have to perform the other 3, but at least you got that salah in its time. It is a sin to perform a salah after its prescribed time has elapsed without any valid excuse. So if you have no valid excuse to delay your salah, valid excuse might be that you are a traveler and so forth. You can join salah and so forth. But if you have no valid excuse to delay and you delayed your salah, then you will be sinning, because you're not allowed to perform a salah after its time. And if you do that, then you will be sinning. So if you perform dhuhr salah and you delay it to perform it in asr salah. So you delayed dhuhr salah and you perform in asr salah, now you will be sinning. You'll be sinning for delaying it if you had no excuse to do so. Or if you delay some, we'll find they delay all their salahs, and they all say they were very busy. This is, something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed, in our lives to bring us contentment, to bring us tranquility, to bring us mercy. Sometimes we think our lives are so busy that you don't have time to perform our salah. But we forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that blesses our lives. So if you had to take time out to perform your salah in the prescribed time, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless your day, bless your work, and then it might have been that you would have need less work to complete your tasks. You probably will need less time to complete your task. Why? Because Allah has blessed that, because you took time out for Allah. And if you take time out to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded of you, then what will happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look after you and make things easier for you. So sometimes you're busy with a project and you find that I can't perform salah because I have to finish this, and then you don't know what to do. You have so much deadlines. Take time out, perform your salah, then you will see that doors will open up for you and things will become easier for you. But if you delay all your salah to later, some people delay all their salah till when? Till Isha salah. So they go to campus, they maybe perform Dhuhr Maghrib salah, but in Dhuhr salah they don't perform, Asr salah they don't perform. But when they come home, they might be a bit late and they don't perform even Maghrib salah. When it comes to Isha salah, they will first perform the Dhuhr, Asr and Maghrib, and then Isha salah. That, like I say, there's no much blessings in your life if you do that. Yes, you are performing your salah, but you'll be sinning for doing that. And there's not much blessings in there, meaning that, yes, you have to perform it, because if you don't at all perform it, there's even more sin. So you have to perform it. And if you have to perform it on time, there will be more blessings in your life if you have to do that. So always remember that, again, the most important thing that will be asked of you, Yawm al-Qiyamah, is your salah. So try to look after your salah. So yes, each salah has a long time period to perform it in. However, the best time to perform a salah is in the beginning of its recommended time. So there are recommended times, as we mentioned. The best time is to perform it in its recommended time. That's when you get the most reward. And of course, if you, like I mentioned, if you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah remembers you. تعرف إلى الله في الرخاء يعرفك في الشدة. Know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when everything is easy, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know you when everything is difficult, when you're in difficulty. So if you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remember you when you find yourself difficult and in difficulty in your work, in your task, in your life, and so forth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make things easy for you. And again, one of the wisdoms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this 5 salahs, compulsory upon us, is that we take time out of our busy schedule to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us. So, subhanAllah, when you wake up in the morning, you remember Allah. So your morning is blessed. A long time period goes, you forget about Allah. But when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again, long time goes, you forget about Allah, and when it comes to Asr, the mid-afternoon prayer, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again. The time goes, and just before the night falls, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at sunset, and then the afterwards at night again, before you go to sleep, before you go to bed. So you are in constant remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and every time you perform salah, the tranquility, the mercy descends upon you, and you will see that your life will change. It will feel a blessed, more blessed life, a life filled with bounties, because everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now we move on to the conditions obligating salah. What does this mean? The conditions obligating salah, meaning if these conditions are filled, then salah becomes obligatory on you, meaning salah becomes compulsory upon you if these conditions are met. What are these conditions? The first one is Islam, if you are a Muslim. So if you are not a Muslim, if you are non-Muslim, then salah is not obligatory on you if you are non-Muslim. So if a non-Muslim accepts Islam, they are not required to make up the salahs they have missed. So let's say they accept Islam at the age of 20. So there's about 5 years of salah since they're mukallaf until 20, 5 years that he did not perform salah in their life. Because it was not obligatory for them, they didn't need to make up the missed salahs, the missed salahs for that 5 years. However, a person who leaves the fold of Islam and then returns will have to make up all the salahs missed during his or her absence. So let's say someone apostated, left the fold of Islam for 2 years. When the person returns to the fold of Islam, the person has to now pay in those missed salahs. They have to make up those missed salahs because they were Muslim, and because they were Muslim, they renounced Islam and they came back. That time period that they did not perform, they have to now, because they had that Islam before, they have to now make up those missed salahs. So the first condition is that you have to be a Muslim. So if you're not a Muslim, it is not obligatory for you to perform salah. The second condition is maturity. So pre-pubescent children are not required to perform salah or make up any missed salahs. I see the questions, hold on. So the question is, what if someone leaves Islam before they become mukallaf? Okay. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that every person, every individual, they are on the deen of the fitrah of Islam. So if you're born, you're on the fitrah, the deen of Islam, meaning you're a Muslim. But your parents will make you either a Jew or Christian. So again, if you in that condition or in that state whereby your parents has said that you have to be a Christian or Muslim and you did not decide on yourself and you're just following your parents, then of course now you're not a Muslim. You followed the the deen of your parents. But if you are mukallaf, is different. So if you're mukallaf and then you renounce Islam, then of course you fall in this category, because all three conditions has to be met: Islam, maturity, we speak now becoming mukallaf, as well as the third. So only if you have all three, then you renounce Islam. Then you have to now, in that instance, you have to make up the missed prayers, the missed salahs. But if you done this before Islam and you're following the deen of your parents, then of course you are just following the deen of your parents, and then you can now accept Islam. And in that instance, again, you will get the honor of accepting Islam and all your sins being forgiven, like a newborn person, newborn baby, when you into the fold of Islam. So let's move on again to the maturity. So a pre-pubescent children are not required to perform salah or make up any missed salahs. So if the person is not mukallaf, or meaning here did not reach the age of puberty, then that person is not required to perform salah or make up any missed salahs. However, parents should order and encourage the children to perform salahs once they have reached the age of 7 years old, but not reprimand them if they miss their salahs. So the person has not yet reached the age of puberty. The person did not, have any of the signs of a person who reached the age of puberty. Did not have a wet dream, or female do not have a menses as yet, or reach the age of 15. So none of those things are there. So the child might be 7 years old. And when the child is 7 years old, as the hadith says, we have to order them to perform the salah, or encourage them to perform the salah. So parents should order and encourage the children to perform salah once they have reached the age of 7 years old, but not reprimand them if they miss their salahs. Why? Because, like you mentioned, they have not reached the age of puberty, and therefore, the salah is not required from them. So we don't reprimand them. But when do you reprimand them? When the children reach the age of 10 years old, the parents should reprimand the children for missed salahs and order them to make up the salahs they missed. They still need not reach the age of puberty, but they are 10 years old. But now when they're 10 years old, you have to reprimand them if they do not perform the salahs. Yes, they will not be punished because they did not reach the age of puberty, but you have to reprimand them if they do not perform the salahs. Why? This is to inculcate in the children the habit of praying on time before they become mukallaf. Legal responsibility. So they are not legally responsible as yet if they do not reach the age of mukallaf, meaning they do not reach the age of puberty as yet. They don't have the signs of puberty. But we have to inculcate in the children this habit of making salah, perform salah. Because if they just reach the age of puberty and then they only perform salah, then they might not have this habit and they might be lazy, or the person might not feel to make salah. And therefore it's very important when the child is the age of 7, you encourage the child, and when they're at the age of 10, then you order the child and reprimand the child if they miss in salahs, and you ask the child to again to make up salah they missed. And this is known as the upbringing of the child. The parent has to bring up the child in a certain way. And the way you have to do it to give a good upbringing to the child is to inculcate the salah in the child. So if you don't do that, then you're not bringing up your child how you ought to bring up your child. This is of the ways of a Muslim. When you have children, you should instill in them the love of salah and instill in them this habit of performing salah. The conditions of obligating salah, the third condition, sound mind. So a person who is mentally disabled is not required to perform salah nor make up any missed salahs during the time of the mental disability. So if a person is mentally disabled, they don't know what's going on, in a different state of mind. This individual, because of their disability, they are not required to perform salah. And they will not be accountable for not performing the salah because they don't know what's going on around them. So someone who possesses the above three qualities are legally responsible, mukallaf. So if you have all these three qualities, then yes, salah becomes obligatory upon you. If you have one of these qualities or two of these qualities, then salah will not be obligatory upon you. You have to have all three of these qualities. You have to be a Muslim. You have to, reach the age of mukallaf, and you have to, have sound mind. You have to have a sound mind. And if you have all of these three, then salah become obligatory upon you because now you are legally responsible for whatever you do. You will be questioned Yawm al-Qiyamah if you do not perform your salah. You'll be sinning if you do not perform your salah on time, and so forth. So now you move on to the prerequisites of salah. So the prerequisites before performing salah. Okay, I see there's another question. And if they remain non-Muslim throughout adolescence, would they have to make up if they return to Islam? Like you mentioned before, if they have those three conditions, meaning qualities, being a Muslim and being mukallaf, meaning has reached the age of puberty, as well as the three conditions here we mentioned was Islam and the maturity as well as the sound mind. If they have these three, then if they are not Muslim and they have these three, they will not have the first one, which is to be a Muslim. So salah will not be obligatory upon them, and therefore they don't need to, in that instance, they don't need to perform salah. And when they do, revert to Islam, they will not need to, in that instance, make up the missed salahs. But if they were Muslim and they were matured, reached the age of puberty, as well as had sound mind, then they left the fold of Islam. And then they return, then they have to now, in that instance, make up those missed salahs. But before that, if they were not, Muslim, because they, before they were even mukallaf, the age of puberty, they decided to go, to a different religion. In that instance, we're saying that they're not legally responsible, non mukallaf, and therefore, whenever they decide to revert to Islam, that will be whereby, like we mentioned, they are turning to Islam now, and then their sins will be forgiven, and they will be like a newborn baby in Islam, meaning free of any sins. You only become legally responsible if you are Muslim and you have reached the age of puberty and you're sound of mind. So let's move on to the first prerequisite of salah. So let's say, okay, we we have those three conditions. We are Muslim, we are, in a state whereby we have reached the age of puberty, and we are, sane, we are sound mind. We have those three. So now salah becomes obligatory upon us. But before you can perform that salah, there are prerequisites. So yes, you got all the conditions are met. Now salah becomes compulsory upon you, but you cannot perform salah unless you do these prerequisites. Okay. So for the salah now to be valid, you have to be in a state whereby it's compulsory for you to perform salah. You have to meet all those three conditions. Here we're speaking about you have met those conditions, but when will the salah be valid? So you have to meet these prerequisites to make your salah valid. Okay, and this is before the salah. So there are prerequisites before the salah. So only once the prerequisites are met, then your salah will be valid. Okay, what's the first one? A person intending to perform salah should firstly be free from all spiritual impurities, hadath. So both minor, not having ablution, and major sexual menstruation and postpartum bleeding. So there are two spiritual impurities mentioned here, minor and major. So before you can perform your salah, you should have wudu. And before we can perform salah, you should be free from the major impurities as well. The minor will be that you should be free from that, not having wudu, meaning you have to have wudu. And secondly, major, meaning if you are in a state of sexual impurity, meaning you had a wet dream, or you had sexual intercourse with one's spouse, one's wife, or husband, then you are in a state of major impurity, major spiritual impurity. Or if you're female, you have your menstruation, or you gave birth and now you have postpartum bleeding. All of these things, if you have any of these things, then you have to be free of them before you can perform your salah. So if you have, menstruation, then you have to wait until your menstruation has stopped and perform your ghusl, and you're free from that menstruation, and then now you can perform your wudu, and then you'll be free from the first spiritual impurity, which is the major, and then you perform wudu will be the minor, which is the ablution. So these are the two spiritual impurities you have to be free from, the minor and the major. And then you have the physical impurities, which is najis on the body and limbs. So if you have najis, which is a physical impurity, najis, if you have it, najis will be like urine and so forth, or feces. If you have any of those things on your hands, or in parts of your body, you have to make sure that you clean that from your body. So in your limbs, you have to make sure that you clean all the najis from your body. So those are the physical impurities that you have to be free from, and the spiritual impurities is the minor and the major. Number two, a person's nakedness, awrah, should be covered with clean clothes, free from najis. So the first prerequisite was that you have to free yourself from any spiritual impurities, minor and major, as well as any physical impurities on your body. So your body has to be free from any spiritual impurities, meaning your body has to be free from any state of spiritual impurities, like being in a state of menses or being in a state of sexual impurity, as well as, that is the major, as the minor will be taking ablution, and the physical, your body has to be free now from any najis, like on your hands, your feet, anything like that. There should be no najis. Secondly, the clothes you wear now to cover your nakedness should be covered, and it should cover you, but that clothes should as well be free of any najis. So your body should be clean of any najis, as well as the clothes that you are using to cover your nakedness should as well be free from any najis, should be free, should be clean. So these clothes, what should the quality of these clothes be? The clothes should be thick enough to hide the color of the underlying skin and hair. So if you are wearing clothes to cover your nakedness, the awrah, because your awrah has to be covered in your salah, it has to be thick enough to hide the color of your skin as well as the hair. So females who wear the scarf, it should be thick enough to cover the color of the hair, as well as if a male wearing now whatever garment, it should be thick enough to cover the color of the skin. The nakedness should be covered during salah. For the males, the area between the navel and the knees. So the area between the navel and the knees should be covered, again, with cloth that is pure, that has no najis on there, no urine on there, between the navel and the knees. As for the females, the entire body, excluding her face and hands up to her wrist. There's a question. Let me just check the question out quickly. So what if you did not know there was some form of impurity on your clothes and then realized afterwards only that there was something on your clothes? Will your salah still be valid as you didn't know? Yes, your salah will still be valid. And this is the situation that the Prophet ﷺ faced, whereby we'll still speak this inshallah in detail when we speak about those things invalidating your salah, whereby the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was performing salah, and then Jibreel came and told him that there was najis on his khuf, and he took his khuf while he was in salah and stood to one side. So we take from that the time period whereby he performed salah and he had najis on his salah, that salah was valid until he knew. So if you know you have najis while in salah and you perform your salah, then your salah will not be valid because the prerequisite is not met. But if afterwards you found out that it was najis and you didn't know about it, not afterwards. Okay. So again, we speak about the nakedness that should be covered during salah. For the males, area between the navel and the knees, and for the females, entire body excluding her face and hands up to her wrist. A person's nakedness must be covered for salah even when alone in a locked, dark, windowless room. Meaning, it doesn't matter if no one can see you, you still have to cover your body. So the clothing has to cover your body so that you cannot see the skin underneath the clothing, as well as the hair. And for the males, yes, a male can wear, something to cover the male between the navel and the knees, but it will be in a sense makruh to perform salah like that, because when you perform salah, you have to perform salah knowing that you are facing and speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you have to come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a presentable manner. You should look presentable when you are performing salah. And so not having clothes on properly, you're not showing this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not making any effort in your salah, but to cover your awrah. But if you had to ask the question, will your salah be accepted? Will the salah be valid? Yes, the salah will be valid because you are fulfilling the prerequisite of covering your awrah from the navel to between the navel to the knees. For females, the entire body, excluding the face and the hands up to the wrist. Prerequisites of salah. Number 3, the place where the salah is to be performed should be clean, free from najis. This includes the area where the feet, knees, hands, and forehead come in contact with the ground when prostrating. It's important to note that the area where the limbs will be in contact with the ground should be free from najis. Thus, if one places a salah mat over the najis to cover it and not allow it to be in contact with the limbs, this prerequisite would be met. So let's say you in your house and you know there's najis, impurities on the floor. So you know it's impurities there. You can take something which is clean and cover that najis and you can perform salah over that. As long as the thing which is on the floor, the mat, and that which will be in contact with your hands is pure, does not have najis, in that instance, you know, you are fulfilling the prerequisites. So when you perform salah, you have to make sure that whatever you're standing on is no najis between you and the thing you're standing on. When you go down into sujood, you have to make sure that whatever you're putting your knees on, between that and your knees is no najis. Between your hands and the thing that you're making salah on is no najis. And between your forehead and the ground, there is no najis. If you are certain about that, then you are meeting this prerequisite. Then you are meeting this prerequisite. It's very important to note that. So let's say, for argument's sake, there is najis, but that najis does not touch your body when you go down onto the ground, then you are still fulfilling this prerequisite, because only the places whereby you're touching, that places should not have any najis. But of course, you should try to make salah on places there's no najis around you. Of course, more effort in your salah, more preparation, the more reward you will receive from that salah. Prerequisites of salah number 4. Knowing the time period of the salah has entered. So you have to know. So you can't just perform salah and you don't know if the salah has entered or not. You're just performing salah and you just hope that it is actually the time for salah. No, you have to know. So you have to know that the salah has entered. This could be done by seeing the time of salah has entered, sunset or shadow of an object. We done this. We see that when the sun sets, we know it is Maghrib. So when the disk of the sun goes down and you can't see the disk anymore, it is Maghrib Salah. So you are seeing that, and therefore you can now perform your Salah because you have knowledge of that the time period has entered. Very importantly, that you have knowledge on this. The second way is receiving information from a trusted source, like a mu'adhin over the loudspeaker. So sometimes, you know, you're in your house, and you don't have much windows or the curtains are closed and you don't know what's happening outside, but you hear the adhan and you know it is, for example, dhuhr salah, because you know it was fajr salah and this is second adhan and you can see it is dhuhr salah. You can see all the time and you can then perform salah with the adhan because you receive that information from a trusted source, or from the salah time calendar, because the salah time calendars is usually accurate to when the salah starts and when the salah ends. So you can use that, or by the passage of time. Example will be if Asr is in 2 hours after Dhuhr, then after about 2 hours after performing Dhuhr, one can perform Asr. So if one knows, for example, okay, you know that for argument's sake that from Dhuhr to Asr there's 2 hours. So when Dhuhr starts, we don't say it is like that, but you say, for example, if we know that from when Dhuhr starts until when it ends there's 2 hours, then you can actually just wait 2 hours. You don't need to worry about looking outside or receiving information, because you know it takes 2 hours before the waqt will enter. So then you can just wait those 2 hours and then perform that. Or perform something that you know takes 2 hours. Some people, they recite maybe, you know, the Quran, and maybe they recite 3 ajza, 3 juz, and it will take about 2 hours, and they know it takes normally 2 hours to perform that, or 4 ajza take 2 hours, and they know this is usually the case, and then you can just perform that, recite the 4 ajza, and then they can perform salah because they know it takes 2 hours. So if you know something takes 2 hours, you can just use the passage of time as well. So you can do it in different ways to try to, you know, estimate the time of the waqts. But you have to be certain that it's in the time. You have to have knowledge that it is the time of salah for you to perform the salah in that time. There's a question. Let's go to this question. So the question asks, regarding the thickness of the clothing having to be able to hide the color of the underlying skin, is it fine so long that others cannot see through the clothing, but the actual material from which the clothing is made is an extent see-through? Example, like when taking off your t-shirt, you can see through the material. However, when you're wearing it, generally it does not it is not possible for others to see your skin through the clothing. Is this fine? As long as generally you can't see through your clothing. If you put any clothing or any material to your eyes and then you look through it, you can see what's through that. But if you wear certain things, you can't see the skin, that's no problem. As long as, generally, if you wear clothing and with that clothing, no one can actually see your skin, then it's fine. But if it's so thin that people can actually see your skin, then you can't. Or if it's thick, but it has big, massive holes in there, then you can see your skin. Of course, you can't wear it because even though it's thick, it does not, serve the purpose. You can still see the skin. So as long as you cannot see the skin, generally, if you wear the clothes and you can't see your skin, and someone looks at you and they can't see the skin at all, then of course that is fine. But like I mentioned, if it's thin and you can see the skin while you're wearing it, or it's thick but it has big holes and you still can see the skin, then it's not fine. So as long as it covers your awrah, meaning no one can see your skin or your hair color, then that's will be considered a clothing that you're allowed to wear to cover your nakedness, your awrah. Okay, let's move on to the final prerequisites of salah. So the direction of the Qiblah should be faced. If one can see the Kaaba, one has to face it. Example, performing salah in Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. So if you're in Mecca and you can see the Kaaba, you have to face the Kaaba. You have no other option there. You have to face the Kaaba. If one cannot see the Kaaba, one has to face the direction of the Kaaba. Example, performing salah at home. We at home, we cannot see the Kaaba, but we perform salah in the direction of the Kaaba. So we perform salah in the direction of the Kaaba. And the Qibla direction is the shortest distance between an individual and the Kaaba. The shortest distance between an individual and the Kaaba. So that means that you are facing the Kaaba because that's short in distance. In South Africa, to find the Qibla, face north, then turn slightly to the right. This is in South Africa. So whenever you are and you want to perform your salah and you're wondering where is the Qibla, just find out where is north, then you turn slightly to the right, very slightly to the right. This is the Qibla because if you look at where is Mecca, Mecca is north and a bit to the right, a bit east. So north and a bit east, and if you are facing that, then you know that you are facing the Qibla. And you have to make effort to find the Qibla. You can't say you know where the Qibla is. You have to ask around and try to ascertain where the Qibla is. So if you can see the Kaaba, you have to face the Qibla. If you cannot see the Kaaba, then you face into the direction of the Qibla. And the direction is normally the shortest distance from you and the Kaaba. So you face the direction of Mecca. And in South Africa, it's north and slightly to the right. And prerequisites of Salah, situations where it is allowed to abandon the Qibla. So it is allowed to abandon the Qibla when a person is in a state of severe fear. Example, while in the battle or running away from a flood or tyrant. Okay. This is one of the things of Salah. If you're a male, then there's no time in your life when you have reached the age of mukallaf, the age of puberty, and you are sane, and you're a Muslim, There's no time in your life whereby salah will not be, compulsory for you to perform. If you have those things, and if you're in a state, then you have to perform salah, even if you're in battle. So you have to perform salah on the time. We're not speaking about if a person, for example, is a traveler. Let's take traveler away. But in generally, if you're just a person at home and you're a male and you're a Muslim and you're sane and you've reached the age of puberty, then you have to perform your salah. There's no time that you will not perform your salah. Even if you're in battle, even if you are fighting with someone. So those time periods will be whereby you will not face the Qiblah. So let's say you're in battle and you're fighting and the waqt has come in. So before they had knives, they used to fight with knives. Let's say we're still fighting with knives. And while you're fighting, you're not facing the Qiblah. You're facing away from the Qiblah. And the waqt, the time period of Salah has entered. Then while you're fighting, you perform your Salah. So you have a sword in your hand, the enemy is in front of you, you're fighting with the sword. Then you perform your Salah in your mind. When you go down for ruku, maybe you bend your neck. And when you go into sujood, you bend down a bit of your back. And while you've been fighting, and this is allowed, even though you're not facing the Qiblah, because you are in a battlefield. Or running away from a flood. So let's say your place is flooding and you're running away from the flood. You're running away from the flood, you're not facing the Qiblah now. The flood is moving in direction opposite to the Qiblah. So you're running away from the flood. In that instance, you can't turn around, because if you turn around to face the Qiblah, what will happen? You can't run backwards. The flood will overtake you. Then you can perform Salah as you're running away from the flood. And a person is maybe a tyrant, you're running away from a tyrant as well, someone who's about to kill you, something like that, you're allowed to perform Salah, whatever way you are in. So you find out that Salah, subhanAllah, is one of those things that is always there. You have no excuse not to perform your Salah. It is allowed to abandon the Qiblah when performing non-obligatory Salahs on a mode of transport. So let's say, while traveling. So let's say you are on a horse, a ship, a car, or aeroplane, and you are traveling. You're allowed to perform non-obligatory Salahs. And you don't need to face the Qiblah. So this means that if one would like to perform Witr Salah while traveling on a mode of transport, one could do so while facing other than the Qiblah. And the reason for this is that normally if you're on a horse and you're traveling, traveler will maybe take days or so to reach your destination, on a ship or a car or something, driving far to let's say Johannesburg, from Cape Town to Johannesburg, or on a plane traveling maybe to some other country, Mecca, or some other country. That time period while you're sitting, you maybe want to be in a state of ibadah. So you can just say Allahu Akbar, and then you can just perform Salah as you are. It doesn't matter what side you're facing, you just perform your Salah, if it is a non-obligatory Salah. So you just say Salah, Allahu Akbar, and in your Salah. So the time period while you are sitting there, you get rewarded, you are performing Salah. So you can perform Salah as long as you want to, as long as you're traveling. So this is one of the rahmah, the mercies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, whereby you can perform Salah in this way so that you can make use of the time you are traveling. However, when traveling by foot, so you know that you can travel by a mode of transport. Any mode of transport can be your foot as well, meaning you walk. Some people travel, they perform Hajj by walking. Some people perform the Hajj by bicycle, and you can do by walking as well. So while you're walking, you are traveling. Some people they walk distances like 4 kilometers, to destinations. So while you are traveling, one can perform non-obligatory salahs as well. So while you're walking, you are performing salah. But while you're walking, you have to face the direction. You can face the direction of the journey, but you have to face the Qiblah when performing the takbir of ihram. So when you start your salah, you first face the Qiblah, say Allahu Akbar, then you walk in the direction of your journey. And when you go down for ruku, you turn to the direction of the Qiblah, then you go down in ruku. When you go down the sujood, you turn to the direction of the Qiblah, And then when you come back up again, and when you go down to the sittings of the two sujoods, between the two sujoods, you face the Qiblah. And when you stand up again, you walk normal again in the direction of your journey. Even though you're not facing the Qiblah, you'll still be in Salah. So a person can be in Salah while you're walking as well. This is your mode of transport, that's your foot. And you don't need to face the Qiblah. And that brings us to the end of the prerequisites of Salah. Is there any questions? I believe there's a question that someone asked. Okay. Okay. So if you for some reason that you only found afterwards that there were holes in your clothing, of course you did not know about that. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not will burden some more than they can handle. It happened before, so you didn't know that you had the holes in there. Then in that instance, as we take analogy of that, of one of the conditions of salah was not wearing any najis, and the Prophet wore najis and he took it off, and the scholars have said because of that, the salah will still be very valid if you find it afterwards. You can apply the same ruling to this, that if you found after that there was a hole in there, I did not know when you perform your salah. But of course, if it is a big, massive hole, then it's something else. And anyone can see your aura. But if something small and you didn't know about it, and then you only found afterwards, then there shouldn't be any problem in that. But if it was like your back was exposed and you did not know about that, and as part of the aura, female and so forth, then of course this is a very big portion of your aura. But if something small like a hole or something, and after you found about this, then inshallah your salah will still be valid, because like I mentioned, it is something that you did not know about and you only found afterwards. But if you found out that there's a hole in your clothing while you're still performing salah and you did not break from your salah, then your salah will be invalid, because you had knowledge of it while you're performing salah. But if afterwards you found out certain things and you're not sure if it was a hole before, while you're performing salah, the hole came afterwards, and of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't burden you more than what you can handle. So I hope that gives some clarity to the question, inshallah. Are there any other questions?
Sheikh, could I ask a question?
Yes, fadal, go ahead.
Just in the meanwhile, in the case of somebody who is reverting to Islam, let's say they take the Shahada, Sheikh, so theoretically that person is Muslim and they obviously fulfill the requirements to be mukallaf. From Sheikh's experience, would you recommend for such an individual to start the salahs immediately, or would it be better for that person to focus on the Aqidah aspects first, getting to know Allah, or where does Sheikh think is the best place to start for somebody who's reverting to Islam?
Very good question you asked. When a person reverts to Islam, salah becomes compulsory on that person, obligatory, because the person is Muslim, the person has reached the age of puberty, and the person is sound of mind. It becomes obligatory on the person. Okay, so the question is, should we teach them Aqidah or not? The mere fact that the person accepted Islam, reverted to Islam, alhamdulillah, the person knows about Allah. If they know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, that Aqidah will be suffice for the person to perform salah, because the person is a Muslim now. And the person performs salah to the person's ability, that's all. So the person did not yet learn how to perform salah, but the person knows the actions of salah, then that will be sufficient for the person in that time period. As the Prophet ﷺ, sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, and it says that, teach them that Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. That's all. Teach them that. And when they are obedient towards that, then tell them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made compulsory 5 salahs the day and the night. So if they understand Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, they know that, then it's upon them now to perform the salah, because in the salah there's rahmah, there's mercy. In the salah there's blessings, there's barakah. In the salah there's so much things that will benefit their lives. So we shouldn't deprive them from that rahmah by telling them that they have to work with the aqidah. If they understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, that the Prophet ﷺ is the last and final messenger. There is no one worthy of worship but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no other deity. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the last and final messenger. If they understand that, then they are Muslim, and now salah becomes compulsory. But should they now learn in 1 hour the whole entire salah? No, we don't say that. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah as much as they can. What are they able to do? If all they can do, they know the positions, the postures of salah, to stand, to go into the ruku and to sujood. If they know that, then they can continue with that. Continue until they learn more and more and more and more. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not burden them more than what they can handle. No one, can, just memorize the salah and how to perform salah in 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week. It takes long, takes days, takes weeks, takes sometimes months to perfect your salah. So for that instance, I'll say, give them that beauty of the salah. Teach him the salah. Give him that time to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't deprive him from that. 5 times a day connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if they can't perform 5 times salah a day and they say it's too hard, tell them whatever they can perform. If they're going to perform 1 salah a day, because that's all they can do now, at least perform salah. At least perform 1 salah a day until they're able to do 2 salahs, 3 salahs, 4 salahs, and the 5 salahs. But at least they have the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what you want them to know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the connection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that will bring the barakah in their lives. That will bring the success in their lives. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the believers, they are successful. Those who are in khushu' in the salah. So if they have humility in salah and they are constant in the salah, those who are successful in life. So my advice would be, yes, you can teach them aqidah. You have to teach them aqidah. They have to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, but they have to have the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. So it's no use knowing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, but then you don't speak to Allah. So again, they understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, the aqidah, then they can put that into practice in their salah. But do not deprive anyone from their salah, because the salah, subhanAllah, is your success in this world and the hereafter. I hope that answers the question somehow, inshallah.
Yes, shukran, Sheikh. Very much appreciated.
So there's some more questions. So the question is, so can they just copy the movements in that situation, meaning that the person just accepted Islam and they know nothing else about Islam? So remember, once a person accepts Islam, the person is a Muslim, the person has reached the age of puberty, and the person is sane. The person is compulsory for the person to perform salah, because the conditions of obligating salah. So conditions of obligating salah are those 3. It's met, and therefore salah becomes compulsory. So let's say they became Muslim and they reverted Islam after Maghrib. So in the waqt of Maghrib now, they have to perform Maghrib. How do they perform Maghrib? They just do the actions of Maghrib. That's all they have to do, because that's all that they know. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not burden a soul more than they can handle. They don't know more than that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not question them about something they're not able to handle. They only know that, and that's enough for them to do. But it's upon them to learn. So yes, that's what they do now. But as they learn the salah, they have to implement those things that they learn and to perform salah in the form and the manner how the Prophet ﷺ taught us how to perform salah. So is it like easy then into practices of Islam? So is it like easing them into the practices of Islam? Yes, every individual know what they can handle. So you'll find individuals that some non-Muslims who revert to Islam, subhanAllah, they studied the salah beforehand, and some of them can perform salah better than what we can. They went over everything and then became a Muslim, they knew how to perform salah. Those are are those who are eager to perform salah, that want to perform salah. You get the others that fell in love with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they did not learn the salah as yet. So for them, it will take time for them to be able to perform salah properly in the way how the Prophet ﷺ taught us how to perform salah. There's even Muslims that cannot perform salah properly. So how can you ask from a person who just accepted Islam to perform salah properly? And for that, we say that with time, the person will be able to understand and be able to grasp the salah, and will be able now to perform the salah how he ought to perform the salah. So in a way, yes, you're easing them into salah, but the person has to learn the salah. The person has to learn the salah. The person cannot say now, no, I don't perform salah. No, the person should have that intention to perform salah, but the person can only do that. So there's a beautiful hadith that says, Prophet ﷺ says that we should always try to aim. Always try to aim to the target. So you have the target, saddidu. So you should always try saddidu wa qaribu wa bashiru. So this beautiful hadith. The Prophet ﷺ says saddidu. So when you have a target, you should always try to hit the bullseye, to hit the 100 mark, the middle, the red dot, whatever it might be. Likewise in salah, you should always try to perform your salah to the best of your ability. Every one of us has ability. The best of our ability, that's what will be asked. Not how someone else performing salah. You'll be asked on your ability. So Yawm al-Qiyamah, you can tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I tried my best. This is my best. If your best is only to perform one salah, and you can justify that you only can perform one salah, Allah alam why, but you can justify that, maybe you're just a new Muslim to Islam, you can justify that, then that's your best. So also, the Prophet said, try your best, whatever you can, try your best. And if you can't get that, so the best will perform 5, and you can't get that, then what's your other best? Qaribu. Get close to your best. No, get close to the optimal. So you should try to do the best, how you ought to perform salah, that he said to do, get the bullseye. And if you can't, you do your best, which is now one salah. Wa bishiru. Then the Prophet says, glad tidings to you, you also get the reward as actually hitting the target, because this is your best. So as long as you do your best, and you, Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of judgment, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you the question, you can say, this is all what I can do, then you will be judged on that. But if Allah knows, He knows the ilm al-ghayb, He knows the unseen, He knows your thoughts, He knows what's in your heart. And so what's in your heart is different than what you are saying, then of course, you'll be questioned and you'll be accountable for what you are doing. So a person who just became a Muslim, that individual, honestly, maybe for this person that he knows, I can't do more than this, is all I can do. With some people are in that state of fright because they turn Muslim and their whole family is against Islam, and they have to now look for place time to make salah, because they make salah at home, the family will maybe kick them out of the house or something like that, and now they have to make salah in secret, and a certain time period, maybe once a day they can do it. Maybe for that reason, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask, why did you do that? And we give reason for that. And that's the reason why we got this beautiful ayah in the Quran, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ, fear Allah as much as you can. If that is as much as you can fear Allah, then that's okay. If you can justify why you're doing that, then that's okay. But if you can't justify, or you are lying in what's in your heart, then of course you'll be questionable Yawm al-Qiyamah for that. So let's say a person who wants to stand up and perform salah, because you have to stand and perform salah, and the person can't do that. So the perfect way to perform salah is to stand, but the person cannot do that. Maybe you have a back problem, now they're sitting down. So the best way to perform salah is to stand and perform salah. But that is said to do, hit the target, perform salah how you ought to perform salah. But you can't do that, then try to perform salah closest as possible. Your best. What's your best? To sit down. I don't want to lay down, I want to sit now because that's my best I can do. Then the Prophet says, Bashiru, glad tidings to you. You will still get the reward as standing up, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not burden you more than what you can handle. You can't stand, you have the intention to stand, but you can't stand, you can only sit. If we get the reward of sitting, of standing, because that's your best you can do. So again, for us, when you see individuals, we're not there to judge. We don't know what's in their hearts, what they are facing, what trials they're going through. So what all we can do is worry about ourselves and give advice to others. But worry about ourselves, that how's our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are we close with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks those questions to us, can we answer or not? Sometimes people, individuals, they are lacking in certain things, but they excel in others. So certain things that you excel in, they lack. But certain things you're lacking in, they are excelling in. Sometimes, we perform salah all the time, and then you find someone that maybe lacks in other things. But when they perform salah, they start to cry. Their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is even stronger than what we can even think of or wish for. Their connection is stronger, even though they might sin, but the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so strong that they cry when they do sin. Do we ever cry when we sin? So some will excel in others, in certain things, and others will excel in other things. But the main thing is that you try your best. If you can perform 5 times salah a day, that's your best. You have to perform 5 times salah a day. And when it comes to non-Muslims, we encourage them to perform the salah, and we ask them to do the very best. If that's the best for them, they can, Yawm al-Qiyamah, tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it was their best for some reason. And with time, if they can perform 1, they perform 2, 3 salahs. And if they perform all the 5 salahs only doing the actions, then that's the best they can do in that time period. Then they have to do more better. They have to learn what to say in these salahs. So they will do the first arkan, the second arkan, third arkan, and so forth, the arkan, the rukuns, and so forth. And they will now better the salah, because that's now what they can do. That's the best they can give. I hope that, answer your question. I'm not sure, but I hope that answers the question. So would the same be applicable regarding fasting for reverts? We are not saying, one thing you must understand, I'm not saying that people can just leave what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded them to do. No. I'm saying that everyone is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everyone is questionable for what they do. If someone can't fast because of some reason, if they're sick, then yes, they don't need to fast. If someone becomes a Muslim in the time of Ramadan, should they fast a day? Yes, they should fast a day, because it becomes obligatory for them to fast a day. But if for some reason they can't do it, if they're fasting because they're not used to fasting and they're fasting and become sick, then of course we'll say, okay, now that's understandable. I mean, you don't need to fast now because you'll get sick. So everyone knows their own situation, what they can do. We're not saying that anyone can do something. We're not giving, a way out for everyone who just become Muslim, that they should not do what they ought to do of the commandments of Islam, of the Sharia. But what you are saying is that that person will, be questionable, and if they can answer why they do certain things, then they will be questionable Yawm al-Qiyamah for whatever they do. But it's for us to advise them, to encourage them, and whatever they do, they will be questionable for that. And like a non-Muslim, if they can only do that, a revert, and only can do that, we advise him. We say, this is the Sharia, you have to do this. But whatever you can do, you do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not hold accountable someone more than what they can handle. I hope that answers the question. And I just want to again emphasize that we are not saying that anyone who reverts to Islam, that they just have a green card to just leave out the Sharia. No, we're saying that themselves, they will now see what they can do. They should try and the very best. And if that's only the very best, then we can't ask someone more than the very best. If someone sees that the only thing I can do is only 1 salah, you can't force someone more than what they can do. You can't do that. That's going against what they can do. It's impossible to force someone to do the very best. And they, of course, will be, questionable of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they'll be held answerable to what they do, inshallah. Hope that answers. I went a bit, over time, ask for forgiveness for that. But if there's any other questions, you're welcome to ask. And if there are no other questions, I'll give it over to Ilyas, inshallah.
Sheikh, there's just one more question. It's an anonymous question. It says that if you had to get your period during Salah, and after completion of the Salah, you only realize, will that Salah still be accepted? It's kind of linked to the earlier discussion that you had.
Okay, so if you find out afterwards that you have, your periods, your menses. So the question is, did you know while you were in Salah? If you did not know while you were in Salah, and after Salah you saw, and you know that while I was in Salah, because while I'm in a state of, very important, if I'm in a state of janaba, you have to then look at if you're in a state of janaba, so this will be now a state of major impurity. If you're in a state of major impurity, your salah cannot be valid at all, because in a state of major impurity and if you have menses. If you know that you had emissions while you're making salah, then of course your salah will be null and void, and you have to repeat that salah because you did not perform your salah. If you know that this, you're not sure if you're not sure, so in doubt, you're not sure if you got it while you're performing salah or after you perform salah. You're not sure if you got your periods while you're performing salah or before you perform salah or after you perform salah. You don't know. Then we take the legal maxim that you base it on what you're certain. You were certain when you perform salah, you did not have your periods. So therefore, you are certain that you're doubting whether you got your periods while you're performing salah or not. Then we say that certainty cannot be removed by doubt. Certainty cannot be removed by doubt. You were certain you have salah, you doubt if you got your menses, therefore that doubt you cast away and you build on the certainty, and that is that you were clean. So that's very important to note. Whenever you come to issues with menstruation and these things, you look at what you're certain. And if you're certain that you had, if you're certain that you had, you were clean basically before you started your salah, you doubt if you got your menses while you were performing salah, but you were certain that you had not had your menses, therefore your salah will be valid, meaning that you fulfill that prerequisite of being in a state of major purity basically. So you instead of major purity, not major impurity, but instead of major purity, meaning that you are not in a state of major impurity. Hope that answers the question.
Are there any other final questions? I guess if there aren't any other questions, just to say Jazakallah khairan to Sheikh Khalid once again for an incredibly informative talk. I certainly enjoyed it, and I'm sure you did too. I think just this concept of having hope, Islam is a religion of hope, and all of us have our own challenges. But the idea is that we don't pull each other down, but we lift each other up and in the direction of the Siratul Mustaqim. So, inshallah, we hope that you enjoyed this talk and you join us next week. Of course, this is just a series of talks on Salah, and I think the next one will be on the actual arkan of Salah. Am I right, Sheikh? The arkan, the components of the actual Salah. So please tune in next week for that portion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.